May did not expect anyone to listen. At 94 years old, she had learned a simple truth about the world. People only leaned in when the story was sweet. When it was bitter, uncomfortable, or too close to home, they smiled politely and changed the subject. But this was too important to stay quiet. She sat in her narrow kitchen chair, the one with the faded yellow cushion Gerald had once promised to replace. The afternoon light spilled through the thin curtains, laying soft stripes across the worn linoleum floor. Her hands, mapped with blue veins and time, rested around a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. Right now, she said softly, as if someone were sitting across from her, someone in your life is lying to you. She wasn't being dramatic. She wasn't trying to frighten anyone. She was remembering. In 1959, when May first put on her postal uniform, she was 29 years old and moving too fast to notice the small things. Back then, life was noise and motion. 3 young children, a tight budget, and a husband everyone in the neighborhood called Dependable Gerald. The job was supposed to be simple. Pick up the bag, walk the route, deliver the mail, repeat. And for the first few years, that's exactly what it was. But something changes when you walk the same streets every day. At first, it's nothing more than familiarity. You learn which porch steps creak. You learn which dogs bark and which ones only pretend to. You learn who waves and who pretends not to see you. Then the patterns begin to speak. May didn't read people's mail. She didn't have to. The envelopes told their own quiet stories. Christmas cards stopped arriving from certain relatives. Bright, cheerful stationery slowly gave way to stiff white envelopes stamped with law firm names. Magazines addressed to Mr. and Mrs. quietly shifted to just one name. At first, May told herself she was imagining things. By her 10th year on the route, she knew better. People forgot she existed. That was the strange magic of being a mail carrier. You were there every day, always moving, always passing through, but somehow invisible. Conversations continued when you approached. Arguments paused, but didn't disappear. Front doors opened just wide enough to reveal more than people meant to show. May never asked questions. She just watched. And over 33 years, she learned something that would settle heavy in her chest for the rest of her life. Most people live 2 lives. There was the life they showed the world, the smiling one, the church on Sunday one, the wave to the neighbors one. And then there was the quiet life, the one that arrived in plain envelopes and certified mail slips. I used to see couples holding hands at church, May murmured to the empty kitchen. And on Monday morning, I'd be delivering their separation papers. She remembered one man in particular, always cheerful, always waving with that wide, easy grin. The kind of man neighbors trusted with spare keys. But week after week, May delivered thick envelopes from out-of-state banks, final notices, overdue statements, red lettering that shouted urgency even when the man kept smiling. His wife signed for a certified letter one humid July afternoon. May never forgot the way the woman's hand trembled just slightly as she wrote her name. 3 months later, the house went up for sale. Patterns. Everything was patterns. But the hardest lesson, the one that cut deepest, was the one she learned inside her own home. Gerald. For 22 years, May believed she knew the man she slept beside. He was steady, predictable, the kind of husband other women in the neighborhood quietly envied. He worked hard. He came home tired. He kissed her cheek every morning before leaving. If there were cracks, May explained them away. Late nights at work, overtime, quiet moods, stress, fishing trips with Ray. Well, every man needed a hobby. Trust, after all, was what good wives were supposed to give. The truth didn't arrive with drama. It arrived casually, almost carelessly, on a Tuesday morning at the sorting facility. "Oh, yeah," her coworker had said, flipping through a stack of forms. Gerald's box is full again. May still remembered the exact sound the fluorescent lights made overhead. A faint electrical buzz that suddenly seemed much too loud. "My what?" she had asked. Gerald's P.O. box. Over on Maple Branch. The world didn't shatter. That's the thing people never tell you. When your life cracks open, it rarely makes a sound. May drove across town after her shift. She told herself there had to be some mistake, some other Gerald, some clerical error. But the clerk didn't hesitate when she asked. Yes, Gerald. Yes, that box. Yes, for more than 10 years. 10 years. 10 years of letters from a woman in Kentucky. 10 years of a life May had never seen. I stood there thinking, May whispered now, staring into her cold tea. That can't be right. I know this man. But knowing someone she would learn is often just knowing the version they've decided to show you. That night, Gerald came home at 6:12 p.m., just like always. He kissed her cheek. He asked what was for dinner. And for the first time in 22 years, May watched him differently. Really watched. The small pause before he answered simple questions. The way his eyes slid away just a second too soon. The careful calm in his voice. Patterns. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. I didn't confront him right away, May admitted softly. And that right there, that was my second mistake. Because deep down, she already knew. And knowing meant everything was about to change. May stayed. 8 more years. 8 years of moving through the motions of a life that no longer existed. She did it for the children, for appearances, for the invisible rules everyone expected her to follow. But each day was a performance, and every smile she forced felt like a small betrayal of herself. The youngest, just 12 when the truth emerged, knew before May admitted it to herself. Children, May realized, were better watchers than adults. They could see the edges of reality without explaining it away. The innocent gaze of a child missed nothing. They caught the flicker of a lie in a tone, the hesitation in a step, the quiet avoidance of the truth. You can pretend adults don't see, May whispered to the empty room, but children always notice. Her life became a sequence of mechanical routines. She made the school lunches, folded the laundry, kissed foreheads at night, all while watching the man who had once been her world. Gerald never knew she was observing, calculating, noting the patterns. He didn't need to. The patterns were unmistakable. The small evasions, the unexplained absences, the stories that didn't align. They all told a story that no lie could ever fully hide. She started thinking about all the families she had watched over the decades. There was the couple with 2 cars and a perfect lawn who slowly dissolved into quiet separation. There was the man whose debt never made it home, but arrived at the mailbox like a ghost, a reminder of the life he kept hidden. There was the envelope she slipped into the wrong slot by accident, the letter that revealed a secret too painful to ignore. And there were countless others, each with small, invisible cracks that widened over time. Patterns were everywhere. People didn't lie once, they lied in repetitions. They betrayed not suddenly, but slowly, testing boundaries, observing reactions, learning how far they could go. May had delivered mail in heat so heavy it warped the asphalt, in snow so thick that each step left a frozen imprint behind her, in rain that soaked her through and through. And everywhere she went, she watched. Always watched. Her friends at the post office didn't realize the depth of her observations. To them, she was simply the reliable carrier, the woman who never missed a route, who always had a smile for the neighborhood kids. But they didn't see what she saw. They didn't notice the subtle changes in mail, the letters that hinted at debts, divorces, hidden love affairs, and bankruptcies. They didn't notice the quiet unraveling of lives that appeared perfect at first glance. I learned something about trust, May said. It isn't given. It's earned. Slowly. And when it's broken, it's gone forever. May thought about how people taught her to trust, how society told women like her to overlook suspicions for the sake of harmony, for the sake of appearances, for the sake of the children. She had done it. She had trusted Gerald despite the warnings her own eyes delivered. She had ignored the small alarms, convinced herself she was overreacting, convinced herself that she must be wrong. She realized how dangerous that was, how lethal that comfort of trust could become when it masked reality. The lessons she learned from her route became intertwined with her personal life. She began to see the signs everywhere. A colleague who always promised help but never delivered. A neighbor who smiled while quietly undermining others. A friend who shared advice but withheld crucial truths. And always there were patterns. Always. The evidence lay in repeated behavior, not in promises, not in smiles, not in soft words. You have to watch, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Not to become bitter, not to build walls, but to protect yourself. Watch patterns, not feelings. Feelings can be manipulated. Patterns can't. They reveal who someone truly is. May thought about the small acts of kindness that truly mattered. There was Carol, her neighbor, who checked in every morning without fail. There was Patty, her friend since 1967, whose consistency matched her words. These were the people May trusted, not blindly, but because over decades they had shown her who they really were. She remembered the final 8 years with Gerald. They were painful, tedious, and hollow. Every smile was a mask, every conversation a rehearsal. But she also remembered what it felt like when she finally walked away. The liberation, the air that filled her lungs for the first time in years, the freedom to watch without fear, to notice patterns without being trapped in them. And then there were the children. Her youngest, now 16, told her, "I've been waiting for you to leave, Mom." The truth had been evident to her long before May admitted it to herself. And in that moment, May understood fully that watching was not only about catching deceit. It was about recognizing courage, the courage to confront the truth, the courage to act on what you had seen, no matter how terrifying. I spent 33 years delivering letters, May said. Letters no one else knew about. Secrets no one else would ever tell. And what I learned above everything else is that people are consistent. They reveal themselves, whether you look or not. The trick is learning to see it before it's too late. Her words were not warnings, they were tools. She wanted others to notice before the erosion reached a point where life could no longer be pieced back together. Trust had to be earned slowly, and when it was broken, it had to be recognized immediately. She had watched too long, stayed too long, and suffered too long to remain silent. And that, she whispered to the empty kitchen, is why I am telling you this now. Watch, observe, learn the patterns. Don't wait for betrayal to arrive in a letter or a hidden envelope, or a quiet silence in a house you thought was safe. Watch now. Pay attention now. Because once you've been deceived, once trust is broken, no words can bring it back. Only the patterns can show you the truth. May reached for her tea. It was cold. She didn't mind. The warmth she sought had long left the cup, but it lived in her resolve, in the lessons she had gathered, in the vigilance she carried like a second skin. She had been invisible for decades, and now, finally, someone was listening. Because someone had to. May sat back in her chair, letting the quiet settle around her. The afternoon had faded into evening, and shadows stretched across the floor like memories she couldn't shake. She took a slow breath, thinking about everything she had seen, everything she had learned, and everything she wanted to pass on before it was too late. People think trust is a gift, she said aloud. It's not. It's a test, and the test never stops. She thought about Gerald, about the smiles and the lies, about the 8 years she stayed after the truth. She thought about the houses on her route, the envelopes she delivered, the lives she witnessed crumble and rebuild. She thought about the neighbors, the friends, the children, the patterns that repeated endlessly. Here's the truth, she whispered. The person most likely to hurt you is the one you would never suspect. Not because they are evil, but because you stopped watching. It wasn't a call to paranoia. It was a call to awareness. She wanted people to live fully, to love fully, but also to see clearly, to notice the small cracks before they widened, to recognize the patterns of deceit, selfishness, and betrayal before the damage was done. May remembered a particular house, a family with 2 cars, a perfect lawn, and children laughing in the yard. For 7 years, everything seemed normal. Then the letters arrived. Law firms, certified mail, notices she could not ignore. Slowly, the smiles vanished. The water bottles stopped appearing on the porch. The good mornings disappeared. And one day they were gone. Gone without a word. The change did not happen overnight. It began with small lies, small excuses, small things ignored. And that, she realized, was the lesson she had carried for all these years. Betrayal doesn't strike suddenly. It is slow, insidious, and methodical. And by the time you notice, the foundation is gone. You're ignoring something small right now, May said firmly. Something that doesn't sit right. Don't tell yourself it's nothing. Don't tell yourself you're overreacting. Watch. Observe. Notice the patterns. That is how you protect yourself. That is how you survive life without losing yourself in someone else's deception. Her voice softened as she thought about those she loved, the few whose actions matched their words, whose trust had been earned. Her children, her grandchildren, her neighbor Carol, her friend Patty, they had proven themselves over decades. And for them, May had warmth in her chest, because trust had not been blind, it had been chosen. Feelings can lie, she said, but patterns never do. Watch what people do on ordinary days when nothing is at stake. That is who they are. May leaned back, letting the weight of her years settle on her shoulders. 94 years, 33 delivering mail, witnessing secrets, patterns, betrayals. And through it all, she had learned the same thing every day. The truth comes out, always. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but eventually it will. So pay attention, she said one last time. Don't wait for the letters, the envelopes, the signs you've been ignoring. Watch now. Trust those who earn it. And remember, the person who could hurt you most is often the one you think you already know. May smiled faintly, sipping her cold tea. She had delivered everyone else's secrets for decades. Now she had delivered her final one. A warning, a lesson, a lifetime of watching. And finally she could rest.